Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pizzapia. And guess what, boys and girls? It's trade deadline time. That's right. Thanksgiving's here, and it's time to cut the turkey. It is time to stuff our faces, but it's also time to make sure that we're making the move that we need to make to get those rosters locked and loaded for playoff runs, for championship hoisting. And we're going to do that today. Andrew Erickson, of course, is joining me every single Tuesday to talk about the running backs that we're going to talk about today. And back again from the Fantasy Flock Network, the giant YouTube channel with all the fantasy football. Mason Dodd somehow had enough energy left to join us and hang out. I don't know how he does it. He's worse than me. I don't know how you plug in again, reset you, but let me tell you, Mason Dodd might be the hardest working man in show business. And because you are, I'm going to hit you with a question right at the top, because the most traded running back on Sleeper this week is DeAndre Swift. No surprise there. The question is, Mason Dodd, what can you get for him, and how willing are you to jettison him? Do you want to hold him? Do you want to keep him? Do you want to trade him? What do you want to do with Swift?
First off, Joe, let me say, can you please start writing the intros for my videos? Like, I have no idea how you're able to do that. And second off, I'm
years
sorry
of practice, my friend. Years of practice.
I am not going to be any help here. Like, I've been saying for a month, maybe, oh yeah, we can't start DeAndre Swift this week. You can't start him until we see the usage change. I mean, Justin Jackson's out there playing more snaps, but he still has rest of season upside if he gets right. And every single week, I look like an idiot. I mean, this past week, Jamal Williams, 3 rushing touchdowns. Justin Jackson literally had more snaps. So I'm throwing my hands in the air saying, like, what is his value? Who is trading for him? I have no idea how he's the most traded running back, because I can't imagine someone going through and still buying into the narrative that if he gets right, he can be a league winner. Maybe I'm throwing in the towel at the exact wrong moment. What I'm so worried of is me just repeating that same sentence that he has rest of season upside for a month while he's injured. I finally throw in the towel, and then all of a sudden, I mean, that's when he turns into a top 10 running back again. So I am so confused. I have no idea what's going on. I would love to hear your opinion.
First of all, Mason, you give me far too much props for writing any intro. They all just come off the top of my head. So nothing's written out here. The show sheets are, that's for sure, what we're going to talk about and all the football stuff, but not the intro. So you gave me way too much credit. Second, you have encapsulated my entire feelings, thoughts, and modus operandi when it comes to DeAndre Swift. I have been doing the same thing as you. I've been saying the same thing as you. And on Sunday, Erickson knows, because we did a live stream together, I said, I'm out. I'm done. I'm like that dealer in Vegas who shows you the hands and then steps up and then leaves the table. That's where I am with DeAndre Swift. Erickson, give me your take on Swift too, because we've all been patient now. We always practice patience. But after this weekend, I can't have any patience anymore. Like, you need a body, you need somebody. So where are you at with Swift? Are you where Mason and I are, where you're ready to just jump ship, but you fear that it's going to bite you in the rear end at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrified that the Lions' number 3 running back is going to bite me in the butt when I try to trade him away. But that's the case that we're dealing with. He's playing behind Justin Jackson. And yes, the Lions have won their last 3 games. So, okay, they haven't really faced a negative game script. Okay, that's why Swift's... But it's like, how many like different scenarios do you need to put Swift in like the perfect place to... Okay, if this happens, and this happens, then Swift will have a good game. So it's like, it's just not worth the headache at this point. So I definitely am in the class of trying to trade him away, trying to package him with somebody else to get a different running back. I know we're going to talk about some other guys here that I'm also really not enthralled with either. So there is obviously Swift has talent. So if you want to buy the talent, I understand that, but the usage is not there. We don't know if he's healthy, and they're winning games by feeding Jamal Williams. And Dan Campbell loves Jamal Williams, so that's not going to change.
Who doesn't? Jamal Williams is everything that you want in a human being. Let's be honest. I mean, I want to hand him the football, and he doesn't even play on my team.
He's scoring all the touchdowns I wanted Swift to score this year when I was taking him in the second round.
Look, he's doing everything. But here's the thing. I can't even get my mind around the fact that he's the most traded player. So that means there's enough people that have had it, but enough people that still see some sort of value in Swift too. You have to have those two weird confluence of events come together for Swift to be the most traded player on Sleeper. And that to me is what's so stunning, which is, I think, why Mason's saying, I have this weird pit in my stomach. It's like the next season of Stranger Things doesn't matter, because this is far more terrifying of what happens after I deal DeAndre Swift. So let's see what the value is. Let's see who we'd rather have rest of season. Let's start with Andrew Erickson. Would you rather have Cordarrelle Patterson or DeAndre Swift rest of season?
I would rather have Swift than Cordarrelle Patterson. I don't like the Falcons matchup this week against Washington. It's horrible. And Patterson just has a tough schedule overall for the Falcons, just for running backs in general. So both guys don't have great usage. Both guys are just thriving off efficiency. And if that's all, if kind of, everything else equal, I'm going to take Swift because I think that he's the better player. Obviously, right, I don't know if he's healthier than Patterson, but...
Okay, well, that's fine. Yeah. Mason, what about for you with this one when it comes to Swift and Patterson? One is probably healthier. Andrew mentions the efficiency metrics kind of the same in that sense, but Atlanta also a very run-heavy team, and Patterson can get used in different ways. So would you rather have Patterson or would you rather have Swift rest of season?
Yeah, so I am very biased. Cordarrelle Patterson, my third most drafted running back behind, Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Walker. So I am really rooting for my best ball teams that Cordarrelle Patterson's going to come through. But this is another player that I'm ready to give up on. If we're looking at back-to-back weeks, 2 weeks ago, he was used in a 4-man running back by committee, had fewer snaps than Tyler Algier. This past week, they trimmed that down from a 4-man running back by committee to only a 2-man committee. But Tyler Algier, yet again, had more snaps, which is very frustrating because if you're playing on the Atlanta Falcons, the overall offensive volume is so low that the only way you can actually be a viable option is if you are that lead back, is if you are going through and getting the majority of touches. So I have a very hard time buying into CPAT. Obviously, he's a phenomenal pass catcher if they wanted to use him that way, but there's no passing volume here at all. They just don't throw the ball. So the man has had, I think, 11 receptions this season, like a ridiculously low number. So I think you go Swift, but that's just because if you're a team that's going to the fantasy football playoffs, you're not starting Cordarrelle Patterson anyway, so might as well just swing for the fences and see if Swift changes his usage. I don't know.
All right, how about Brian Robinson or DeAndre Swift? Who would you rather have rest of season, Mace?
Antonio Gibson, I think, had like 40 snaps compared to Brian Robinson at 20 this past week. Here, I don't really see the upside with Brian Robinson either. He has 7 receiving yards this entire season. He's playing in Washington, so the touchdowns aren't going to come. So if you don't have access to touchdown upside or a receiving down role in a bad offense, it's just a player that I need to be avoiding. So if we're playing in a PPR format, I know Swift is very scary. There's no way in hell you could put him anywhere close to your starting lineup anytime soon. But between these two guys, I think you probably got to go Swift.
All right, they're real close in rest of season rankings, Erickson. Would you rather have Brian Robinson or would you rather have DeAndre Swift?
I'd rather have DeAndre Swift. I think we kind of know what Brian Robinson is. He's an early down grinder. He had a boatload of carries against the Eagles and barely scored like 15 fantasy points because he doesn't catch passes and he has to score touchdowns. So, look, the thing with Swift is we keep talking about if X changes, because there is a path where that happens. What's going to change with the Falcons that Cordarrelle Patterson is just going to become a monster? What's going to happen with Brian Robinson? We've already seen him play ahead of Antonio Gibson, and now the team's going back to Antonio Gibson as the lead back. Whereas Swift, look, they played a couple more negative game scripts. There is a scenario where he does turn it around in some capacity. Now, the faith in that is the reason why he's still not ranked as high as he should be, because there's fear that it never will change. But I think that his chances of changing are better than Cordarrelle Patterson or Brian Robinson really hitting a ceiling that we know Swift can offer. So that's why I'm going to go with Swift on both of these guys.
So basically what I'm getting is you boys aren't ready to quite sell him off completely. You do have a standard still when it comes to DeAndre Swift. I think that's what we're learning, and that's why I tested you. I took 2 guys that I thought were lesser, and I wanted to test you to see if you were ready to just say, no, I want out. I just want that guy who is healthier. I don't care if he's in a committee. I don't care what's going on, but you're still holding out hope then for Swift. So that's for everybody out there who's got DeAndre Swift. That's where the guys are at right now. They're holding on still. So you got to do a little bit better than that to move DeAndre Swift. I don't know how much better you're going to get, but I think that's the deals that are out there. Speaking of guys that are dealt quite a bit over on the Sleeper app, D'Onta Foreman. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, I got out of the D'Onta Foreman business a few weeks ago, and I sold high, and I'm very glad that I did because certainly Baker Mayfield came back, and we all know the rest of that story. So here you go. This is an interesting one here. Andrew Erickson, we'll start with you. Do you want to buy, sell, or hold D'Onta Foreman?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to move away from D'Onta Foreman if I can, but I just don't think you're going to get really much for him. He's coming off such a horrible game against the Ravens that he's super game script dependent. So I think that he's really more of a hold. If you need a running back this week, desperately, he does have a couple good matchups coming up. Even this week, he's playing the Denver Broncos. You can't throw in the Denver Broncos. Carolina has no interest in throwing the ball whatsoever. So you could see him having a productive game here. And he's dirt cheap right now, because if he's not playing the Atlanta Falcons, he's playing another bad matchup, and that's when he suffers because he's just not involved in the passing game. But he still was the RB1, even over guys like Chuba Hubbard. He was still being used a little bit more than those guys. He's not a pass catcher, but I can't sell him for basically nothing, so I would probably just hold him, or if I need a running back desperately, you could probably just like pick up Latavius Murray and flip him for Deontay Foreman this week if you just would rather go with that route. That's kind of how I would approach it.
Wow, really low down there. I mean, he has had some big games, so I wonder what his value is on the open market. So Rashad White's an interesting name. He's coming off a bye. Last time we saw him, he had a lot of workload there. So Mason Dodd, I'm going to ask you, would you rather have Rashad White coming off this bye here, rest of season? We don't know if it's going to be him, it's going to be Fournette, what that usage is, or do we take the usage we know with Deontay Foreman, but the underwhelming potential game scripts and matchups that we have come to know and hate from the Carolina Panthers?
Well, I graduated from the University of Texas, so hook 'em horns. I'm rooting for Deontay Foreman. Gotta say it every time we bring him up. But we already see what prototype he is. He's a running back that's going to be a first and second down guy that's playing in an offense where there's no touchdown upside. So going back to what I was talking about with Brian Robinson, in a full PPR format, in my opinion, the worst prototype of a player is going to be that first and second down guy that's in a horrendous offense, so he won't be scoring touchdowns. So that's why, Joe, I think you killed it by trading him away a few weeks back. I would still be selling Deontay Foreman if we could. And I think Rashad White's a perfect name to go for in a PPR format because he can catch the ball. And maybe Deontay Foreman's a little bit better on a week-to-week basis just because he has the guaranteed starting role. But if you're looking at the range of outcomes, if Leonard Fournette were to go down, Rashad White wins your league. If Chuba Hubbard were to go down, Deontay Foreman is still a high-end running back 3. He's still not really making a difference. So even if the median projection may be slightly higher with Foreman, I think Rashad White has the ceiling that Foreman just can't come close to.
Foreman has 3 100-yard rush games. There's not a lot of guys this year that have 3 100-yard rush games. And I think that's fascinating because it is 32 points or it's 3 points. And that's
Joe, he's the only running back that's played the Falcons twice. So
also fair. 2 of those games were, but one was also against Tampa. 15 for 118 against Tampa too. Let's not forget that one. So speaking of Tampa, Rashad White or Deontay Foreman, Erickson, who would you rather have rest of season? You want to roll the dice with White?
I mean, I've loved Rashad White ever since I looked up. I basically did the draft coverage for him, and I think that he's just a baller. And I was so excited to see him kind of start that game over Leonard Fournette. So I'm going with Rashad White here.
All right, so no hesitation there for you. All right, let's up the ante a little bit. Now, this guy's getting a lot more work and a lot more hype, getting a lot more buzz. Still doesn't have any touchdowns yet, though. Isiah Pacheco or Deontay Foreman? Erickson, who would you rather have rest of season?
I'm going to go with Isiah Pacheco here. I think that both of them have similar roles on their offenses, except one of them plays for the Chiefs and one of them plays for the Panthers. So there is a very different terms of scoring opportunities. Not to say that the Chiefs like to give the ball to the running back. They like to throw for touchdowns. But, hey, more scoring opportunities. Eventually, you think that Isiah Pacheco finds the end zone. And I love the Chiefs' playoff schedule for running backs. Texans, Seahawks, Broncos. Like, that is a really good schedule for Pacheco. So I would prefer him in the situation.
I think there's a world where you could pull this trade off based on some of the big smash games that Foreman has had so far. And the fact that you still don't have, any touchdowns for Pacheco, which I know is a completely overrated statistic, but let's all be honest. In casual football leagues, people look at this and say, yeah, he's getting a lot of yards. He's gotten scores. Foreman I can kind of bank on. You kind of look what he's done. I'd rather have Pacheco too. Mason, do you want to sweep that 3 for 3?
100%. I think Andrew said it perfectly. They're the same running back. They're the first and second down grinder. One of them plays for the Carolina Panthers, so where the ripping opportunity is going to be, and the other one plays for the Chiefs. They're the same guy, 2 different offenses. Maybe Deontay Foreman's slightly better. Like I said, I want to root for the man. But one has Mahomes, the other one has Baker.
Right. And you'd think that Pacheco would have gotten some touchdowns because of that, but not so much yet. And you still can, you could seed some doubt there with, wow, McKinnon's around all this stuff. And it's so funny about the guys we're talking about. If you look at the rest of season rankings over at FantasyPros, Foreman is at 25, Swift is at 26, Patterson's at 28, Pacheco's at 29, Rashad White's at 31, Brian Robinson's at 32. All these guys are in this cluster, in this clump. But I think the big takeaway is if you're looking to kind of pluck a guy or two away, it's somebody like Pacheco. It's somebody like that. It's somebody like Rashad White who has that kind of upside here rest of season. So there are some separators in this low-end RB2, high-end RB3 conversation to target in trades. Let's get to some more trade targets. Mason Dodd, who's the RB in week 12 here that you want to buy low on?
I've been saying this over the past few weeks, and I really don't want to be labeled the Najee Harris guy. Like, please, for the love of God, do not attach me and Najee Harris together. But at this point, with where his perception is and how far he has fallen, I think he is a fine buy. Because if you go through and you look at the beginning portion of the year, really the first 8 weeks for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris had the toughest running back schedule you're going to find. With Najee Harris, he played in an offense where Kenny Pickett started out his career with 2 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It couldn't have been a worse situation. And now things are shaping up where the rest of season schedule isn't phenomenal, but it's significantly better than where it's been. Kenny Pickett's only going to get better, or at least we should assume he only gets better his rookie season. Jalen Warren just goes down with a hamstring injury. So now you're looking at Najee Harris taking that additional workload where he pretty much played every single snap this past week. So please don't label me the Najee Harris guy, but if his perception's this low, and in my opinion, his situation's getting better, I think that he can be a buy low candidate.
There you go. Everybody in your 2 comments, make sure you talk about how much of a Najee truther Mason Dodd is, everybody. I want to see it in the comments. I want to see it. Oh, but you're right. I mean, look, back-to-back weeks, 20 carries, finally getting some touchdowns. Kenny Pickett's still learning on the fly, but certainly better than what Trubisky was earlier in the season. Now, one RB you can't buy low on is Austin Eckler, but lucky for you, we're giving away an Austin Eckler autographed jersey. So if you head over to fantasypros.com/contest, you can go ahead and enter to win that bad boy. All you got to do is go leave a 5-star review of the podcast, wherever you get your pods. So go to Apple Podcasts, talk about the show, how much you love it. Screenshot that bad boy, go to fantasypros.com/contest, and then you are entered to win that Austin Eckler jersey. And don't forget, follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter machine, TikTok, Andrew Erickson's favorite. You become 1, 2, 3, 4 possibilities. That's right, 4 entries into the contest. So fantasypros.com/contest to win that Eckler jersey. All right, who would be winning this week, Mr. Erickson, if you were to buy low on a certain running back? Who would it be?
Yeah, we've talked about him when we were discussing Brian Robinson, but I like Antonio Gibson. 18 carries, 3 targets last week, season high in snap share at 68%. Like, if you guys have just been chasing the snaps with running backs, it's usually the telltale sign that this is the running back you want to be targeting, because the snaps correlate to more fantasy production, just how the running back position works in fantasy football. So the fact that he didn't score and that he didn't smash against the Texans, and everyone was like, the Commanders are going to smash, and they were kind of underwhelming. Curtis Samuel, of course, came away with the lone rushing touchdown. I mean, Antonio Gibson still had 2 carries inside the 10-yard line. He just didn't score. So when you look at his matchups, so he's got the Falcons and the New York Giants twice in his next 3 games, along with the bye week.
Giants back-to-back, right? If memory serves, they got the Giants
with a bye week in between.
The Giants again, yeah.
Yep. So I think the schedule's really great for him, and Brian Robinson's still involved enough where I don't think people view Gibson necessarily as, he's just locked and loaded our running back 1. Whereas I think people were excited to start him last week, and he was like, He was like, oh man, is Antonio Gibson really it? And I'm telling you, yeah, he is it. And we know he's explosive, and I think he's taken over as the lead back here. So I'm going to go with Gibson.
He's officially a second half guy. That's who he is. Comes on in the second half every single year. I'd be buying him in those dynasty leagues on the cheap too, because either he's there next year doing it again, or he's somewhere else doing it for 3 downs. So go check him out. All right, let's get to the sell high RB for the trade deadline in week 12. Who do you have, Andrew Erickson?
On Singletary during draft season, it felt he was being really undervalued, and now I'm trying to get out because I'm trying to capitalize on his touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. So you look at what he's been able to do. So he has 7 carries inside the 10-yard line. He had 4 in week 11. He has 3 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen has had 0 carries inside the 10-yard line. So you're starting to see a usage change where they're embracing Singletary more in the red zone against some of these softer run defenses. But the fact that James Cook, looking pretty spry out there, rushed for 86 yards on 11 carries, played his largest snap share since week 2. There's just a lot of outs with Devin Singletary where you could see his value in production start to crater a little bit. If they eventually do decide to use James Cook more, if they do decide to use Nyheim Hines in some receiving role, there are just paths where Devin Singletary's value decreases substantially, whereas right now he's at peak. He's coming off touchdowns, which he barely ever scores because Josh Allen is obviously a big part of their red zone offense. And when you come down to the wire, I really think that they're going to be going back to Josh Allen as the red zone running back for the Buffalo Bills. So I think that too, even this matchup against the Lions, this is the perfect opportunity to sell on Singletary, because you look at the lines of the last 3 weeks, we thought that the Bears were going to smash, the Packers were going to smash, the Giants, Saquon Barkley, he was going to smash, all underwhelmed. So I think the Lions the defense for the Lions is better against running backs than we've given them credit for over the last couple of weeks. And Singletary is just not a difference maker. They don't necessarily feature him as much in the rushing game. So I think that Singletary is a strong sell high.
All right, Mason, who is your sell high for week 12 of the NFL?
This isn't someone you have to get off your roster, but for casual leagues, I feel like maybe some owners are going to get a little too excited about Isiah Pacheco. He's going to be fine in a non-PPR format. Non-PPR format, I actually think maybe he's a buy. I definitely think he's at minimum a hold. But in a full PPR league, he's not going to catch the ball. Just dominated the Chargers. Soft run defense in probably one of the best games of the year. I think that we can all get on board saying that for prime time, it's been probably the best game of the season, if not up there. So a lot of people saw it. The man doesn't catch the ball for a full PPR format, knowing the Chiefs usually look to throw it when they get in the red zone. I would at least be willing to throw him out there on the trade block and see what offers come your way. But he's not someone that you have to be shipping off of because he is in a very good offense and he clearly has that first and second down role.
Yeah, if you can get somebody to overpay, I agree. He's an interesting one because he does play in a high-profile team because it is Mahomes and all of that. But you're right. I think it's an overpay more than anything for Pacheco. All right, let's get to your questions, everyone. Straight from the listener mailbag over on our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat. Again, free to join, but don't forget, every time you are a premium member of Fantasy Pros, you get access to AMAs, our stages, a whole lot more. Let's get to the 3 and out. Here's your 3 questions here. This is from Large Pigeon. So not the small one, not the medium, but the large pigeon. Saquon and Pickens or A.J. Brown, Aaron Jones, Chris Olave. A lot of talent going back and forth in this deal. Mason Dodd, I've been talking lately about Saquon. I'm not talking about hitting a wall necessarily, or you look at some of the matchups he's got coming up, 2 against Washington. Is this the time to be getting out of the Saquon business? Would you rather be on the A.J. Brown, Jones, Olave side, or do you want Saquon and Pickens in this deal?
If you were worried about Saquon, I think this is a very fair price point to cash out on. I know A.J. Brown hasn't been great over the past 2 weeks, but in reality, I'm not worried about Brown whatsoever. If you look at Dallas Goedert being removed from this offense, this past week, Devonta Smith, as well as A.J. Brown, accounted for like 60% of the targets in Philadelphia. They are just going to get absolutely everything. It's not like Quez Watkins is going to be leading the team in receiving touchdowns down the stretch. Olave, in my opinion, is a massive upgrade over George Pickens, given the fact that you have no Michael Thomas rest of season. So it's not necessarily a smash trade where I think you're running for the hills, laughing at the owner you made the deal with, but it is a fair price point. If you want to get out on Saquon Barkley, I'm fine taking A.J. Brown, Aaron Jones, and Chris Olave. A quick side note, love the name Large Pigeon. That is pretty cool.
Gotta love the Large Pigeon. All right, let's go to L6 Onzo. We've got, is Ramondre and Sutton too much for JT? So Erickson, what do you think when you're trying to deal for Jonathan Taylor? Is giving up Ramondre and Sutton too much to give? I don't think it is. Do you?
No, I don't think it is. I think you're giving up, a low end RB, a top 15 guy for, a higher tiered running back with Jonathan Taylor, and then you're moving Sutton, who at this point is just like a wide receiver 3. Like, he's someone that, obviously plays better when Jerry Jeudy misses time, but still in the Denver Broncos offense is just underwhelming most weeks. So I don't think Sutton's really a difference maker. If anything, he's just, hey, take this extra guy that I don't really need so I can get a better running back. So I think that the deal is fine.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last one here. Ryan Blue Chip Sports. He is sending Christian Kirk and Rashad White getting back Foreman, Freiermuth, and Godwin. So Erickson, what side of this deal do you want to be on?
I love the Freiermuth acquisition at tight end. I think that Freiermuth, we've seen him the last 2 weeks, 30% target share. So with tight ends going down left and right, basically it's like Travis Kelce and then basically every other tight end. If you're hurting at the position, then I think that you're getting you're getting a tight end 1 for, I think, Godwin and Foreman. We talked about Foreman and Rashad White. Okay, from a median projection standpoint, they're probably going to be very similar. Godwin over Christian Kirk, flip a coin. Both guys see a lot of volume. So I think that the wide receivers and running backs are pretty equal. And
are they evil, Erickson? Is that what's going on? We're going backwards.
Classic, the Freudian slip. Yeah, so I think that they're just getting this tight end 1 for basically free. So I like the move.
What do you think, Mason? Is this trade good or evil?
100%. I think it depends on your roster construction. If you really need to go through, if you really need to get that tight end, pull the trigger. I would probably rather.
I think it works for everybody.
Foreman. Yeah. I'd rather have Kirk over Godwin, but it's marginal. But if you need a tight end, let's go get Friday.
I think this is the kind of trade where everybody wins, which is the trades you should be looking to make, where somebody gets that extra tight end boost and somebody gets that little bit of an extra bump of Kirk better than Godwin, as you're saying, Rashad White more upside than Foreman. This is a good trade, Brian Blue Chip Sports. So go out there and make it. All right. As always, make sure you follow Mason Dodd over on the Twitter machine at Mason Dodd FFN. Also check out the Fantasy Flock network over on YouTube. Subscribe today. They're fantastic over there. Mason just churning out content at an incredible rate. He's unbelievable. He's still going strong there. Go check him out. Go subscribe to that channel as well. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Andrew Erickson and Mason Dodd, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at FantasyPros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.